And we are live. Hello, everyone. It's CJ, and welcome to another edition of Harvest and Plume podcast. And very excited today to be joined by Kim McCarthy, the creator, the founder, the editor of Harvest and Plume, and the Cannabis Sessions, which I believe I forgot to put in the title of the podcast. So excuse me for that, Kim. But anyway, Kim, how are you doing today?
Great.
Good.
Very
Excellent.
good.
Yeah, good. Well, it's been a week since we chatted, and a lot of interesting things have transpired since then. I've been following up and getting a little bit more information upon your upcoming event. It sounds just truly exciting, just a wonderful opportunity for people to come and pitch their ideas. It sounds like there's going to be some accredited investors there. The property that it's on sounds amazing. I'm tempted to cancel my plans that I have for that weekend and venture out to join you. But why don't you share for our Rogue 420 listeners a little bit more about that, please?
Absolutely. The Metamorphosis Retreat was created initially to balance out the economic empowerment group members. You know, they qualify for a reason, and they should be given some special situations to help the microeconomies and communities. And it has since really been about all the entrepreneurs. So about half of the attendees, the entrepreneurs, are half economic empowerment, and the other half are, your regular entrepreneurs. But it's awesome because it's a completely trusted and secure environment. Everyone has been vetted. There are no looky-loos. It's an area where we already know you want money or you need investments to put your money into, and here's the situation. And they can literally, like a buffet, go through. You get to talk to everyone openly, freely. We have great speakers lined up. Our swag bag, we're excited. We have lots of giveaways that are going into the bag, and of course they're all hemp and cannabis related. But what's most important about it is that we're giving all of the entrepreneurs an opportunity to move forward in this emerging industry. And that's important because if you've been reading the news, there's some stuff that's not on the level. And one example that is out there is the Fall River, Massachusetts mayor was receiving bribes. And this is one example of really many that are going on that's preventing all these entrepreneurs from reaching their next level. So we created one.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the event, it looks like this kicks off. Is it next Saturday or the week after the date of the event? I'm sorry, I don't quite
it's
have
in
that.
A little more than a week. It's just around the corner. Not this weekend, but next. It's on a Saturday. And
Yes.
And it does require an invitation.
So Saturday, September the 28th, September the 28th, and it looks like the symposium on the schedule looks like the symposium is at a private residence in Manchester by the sea, and I believe that's the very far northeast tip of Mass.
Right.
I believe, and it's just beautiful up there. Gosh, it's just gorgeous area. And it looks like you have
leaf peeping season. So
what's that?
It's leaf peeping season. Could you pick a better time to be in Boston? All the colors are changing, and you're in this beautiful mansion on the North Shore. It's going to be an incredible venue and event. The mansion provides. We were going to have it on a yacht, and then we decided, you know what? It's actually going to be quite the logistics of taking people from the mansion and then transporting to the yacht. And I mean, the mansion is just so beautiful anyway. So let's keep everyone there. There are literally plenty of rooms to hold private dealings, and we just get to stay there all day.
Yep. It sounds like a wonderful event. And again, for our Rogue 420 fans, and also for the Harvest and Plume and the Cannabis Sessions, again, that link to go there and visit is the metamorphosisretreat.com. It's a beautiful website. Check it out. There's all the information regarding the speakers, the sponsors, the schedule event, and then also a contact form, because again, this is an invitation only event. So if this is something that you're interested in, please go to that site and click on the Get in Touch. And I believe we also have a special guest that's going to join us here via the phone and share a little bit more. So, Kim, if you'd like to introducing, that'd be great.
Was that a lion?
No, I'm sorry. I'm in my car. That was a motorcycle I was riding by.
Hi, Carlos and viewers. This is Ike, and he is, I will let him tell his story, but he is actually one of the entrepreneurs, economic empowerment entrepreneurs, who is involved with the retreat as an attendee. So please, Ike, take it away.
Yeah. So hello all. My name is Ike McBride. I am from Worcester, Massachusetts. My group is called Community Growers Partnership. Last year in April, Massachusetts allowed a small window for people to join and become part of the Economic Empowerment Program, which gave people, groups of color, groups who have been disproportionately affected by the marijuana trade, and different other groups that have been selected to have an opportunity to get in the game, basically as entrepreneurs, but with the idea that the overall ownership of the marijuana or cannabis industry is white male. So trying to break that and make sure that everybody has a chance to play on the same surface kind of thing was the idea behind Massachusetts giving us the opportunity. Very excited about the opportunity, but there are some drawbacks to it. We were given the opportunity and we were blessed with it, and they said, here you go, you're a part of economic empowerment, good luck. And that's exactly what it was, good luck. There were no supports in place. You kind of had to figure this whole thing out on our own. Navigating these systems is one thing, but navigating these systems without the financial support is a total other monster. So we, as a group of 4 novices, we did some amazing things. We got ourselves a host agreement last year in February. Well, this year in February, but last year they announced it right around Christmas that we'd be one of the groups that would be getting in. And primarily, a lot of that is due to my history here in the city. I've run the Boys and Girls Club for a little under 20 years as a director of operations. So, kids 20 to 35 in this community pretty much are my kids. And they've grown up, and now these are adults that are professionals all over this community that I couldn't be more proud of. I mean, I have kids that are, working in, police. I have young people that are, I have a young person that's about to be a world champion boxer. If you haven't heard of him, his name is Jermaine Ortiz, and he's coming. But I mean, I got a million of them. So I'm really excited about the history that I've had. But, it got to a point where the club had kind of put a ceiling on me. There was nowhere for me to grow within the organization. If I wanted to grow, I would have had to leave the organization, and that wasn't what I wanted to do. So it was a very tough time for me personally, trying to figure out where my niche was going to be. And then, the other side of it is that, I'm mid-40s making this decision. And, at this point in the game, you have to have something that's going to be legit and it's going to take care of you for the rest of your life, or you're going to be, starting over at square one again. And I really didn't want to do that because I didn't think that was going to work for me. So I really wanted to try to find a way to get into something that was going to, create wealth for my family going forward. And, cannabis became that picture. So I put myself together. I got my team together. We did all this work. We got here. We got ourselves to a point where we are, ready to go, but we don't have the financial support. And a lot of that comes back to the fact that, as an investor, you're going to look for certain things if you're going to give your money to somebody. And I mean, if you have a bunch of groups that are established, that are coming from all over the country, that have been working on the West Coast, and they're now coming east, and they're looking for investors, are you going to go with the experienced group that has something already laid out, or are you going to go with the new kids on the block that are just dreaming at a chance? And I think we're seeing that a lot, that we're not we're the ugly duckling in the dance,
Mm-hmm. Something, I apologize for interrupting. Something that I think is important to know is that the investors who are vetted, we already know what they want. And some of them want debt and some of them want equity. And right. I think that's extremely important for people who really don't understand that part of the game, is to say, there's a huge opportunity at this retreat for a very large population. to make some awesome opportunities for people such as Ike and other entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think in terms of some of the things that we've seen and witnessed in regards to this industry, that bigger isn't necessarily better. And there's been some pretty predominant companies, mostly based out of Canada, that have really stirred up things this week with some really investment, some performas and financial outlooks that are very concerning in terms of some of those big players and what they're doing. So there, I think in this industry, there's still room for some small players. I think there is going to be continued consolidation, but I want to applaud you guys for your efforts and what you're doing, with the Metamorphosis Retreat, because there's unfortunately out in this industry, there's also a lot of people who are going to be out to, I don't want to say necessarily take advantage, but maybe just question the accuracy of information that they're receiving. So if there's a platform for them to attend, to obtain the knowledge in regards to investment dollars, what the potential are, what potential a startup needs to do to get started in this space, and primarily, let's face it, it's kind of state by state at this point with the logistics of licensing. So hats off to you. I'm confident it's going to be a great program, and I'll turn it back to you guys if you have any other thoughts.
Ike, did you want to add anything?
Well, yeah, I mean, I do think that the Metamorphosis Retreat is going to be a great opportunity, especially for people like myself who, over this last year, I've been, kind of blessed or cursed with a really hard education on this game, really fast forward. And, it's not the actual marijuana trade. I mean, because I've said this many times in conversation with many people, for my community or the group that I'm with or the people like myself, the problem isn't flipping the flower into cash. We've been doing that forever. You know what I mean? The problem is making sure that we're doing it to, quote unquote, the new gangster's form of doing it. And right now, the new gangster is the state. I mean, if we look at it as the way the trade has been done forever, this isn't change for us. It's just now there's a new boss man in the game, and he wants us to play by a different set of rules. And we've got to adhere to that if we want to be in this game legally, which is what we want.
Right.
But at the same time, we also need to have, and I don't want any handouts. I don't want anybody to think they have to come outside themselves. But we also need to have the playing surface be a little bit more, laid out even. And I say that from the standpoint of, I worked in human services for 20 plus years. Going out and begging for money is something I do not have a problem with doing, and I have done for years. But it's easier if I'm doing it, if I'm begging for children for money, or if I'm begging for animals for money. You know what I mean? It's not as easy as myself going out into the community and asking for money for me to sell drugs.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I mean, and when people who are in positions of money, from what I've learned anyway, with the whole having to ask for money thing, people who are in positions to give usually give to people who look like themselves, or a woman there who's much better, who's much easier to give to. It's easier when you're giving to someone like that. Last on the list, if you're giving as a giving person, is unfortunately me, So I have to overcome all of that when I'm coming to the table as well, in order to make sure that I'm giving you the right business plan, exactly what it is that we want and what we can do together. And then I have to make sure that I can act on that and follow through with it. So to be able to articulate my mission and what it is I'm trying to do, to have all my paperwork and things lined up, this is stuff that we've had to do for everything in order to be ready. So this is nothing new for us. We're just waiting for the opportunity more than anything else. So hopefully that's here at the Metamorphosis Retreat.
Yeah, very, very well said. Go ahead, Kim.
I'm actually bridging to another topic, but it supports exactly what Ike was saying, that every state is different, and there are going to be a lot of irregularities surrounding how this industry is going to continue emerging and then take form. And you had actually forwarded an article about Mitch McConnell and in taking from the hemp perspective on CBD, taking it so that it can be regulated. And there are a lot. I honestly, I am not the person to be getting into a political conversation with. So I don't want this to be political, but I'm very happy that McConnell is coming out with this because it's sorely needed. And in my opinion, please correct me if I'm wrong, both, Carlos and Ike, that by McConnell doing that on hemp, it's setting the foundation. And granted, it's only for CBD, but I think that's going to be able to springboard for exactly what Ike is talking about and others are experiencing.
Yeah, I just so you know, I actually have the article pulled up, and this is in regards to Mitch McConnell, the Speaker of the no, he's not the Speaker of the House. He's Senate Minority Leader, where he was actually pressuring the FDA to create clear guidance on CBD, and unfortunately, the FDA, really kind of dropped the ball on that because we had the farm bill that passed in regards to hemp, but yet there was still CBD that needed to be dealt with. And at the time, the FDA director came out with just basically guidance. It wasn't necessarily a law, just more guidance. And hey, look, no one should be infusing anything with CBD right now, where there's already thousands of companies that are already doing this. And so I think this is great that they're telling the FDA, hey, look, you need to step it up and create clear guidance so that these companies can feel forward. And it ties right back to the investment world. So I think there's an active group of traditional investors who are kind of waiting on the sidelines, right? They're waiting for clarification on the rules, the laws that potentially could affect their investment dollars. So I think this is a good move for the FDA to come out and give clear guidelines as far as infusing products with CBD. We already know that they're out there. So let's understand what they need to be. Let's establish, testing standards. Let's get all that in place to be transparent, and that'll allow the free market, to flow in, to be able for entrepreneurs to be involved in this space. So, what are your guys' thoughts?
Well, I mean, personally, I think that, there's going to have to be some form of a blanket form of testing that's going to go almost nationwide eventually. Because what you're seeing is you have different states that have different testing levels, and they have different testing levels based on, whatever science that those states feel like they need to, put in. So, like, for instance, Massachusetts, we test for heavy metals here when it comes to, like, the oils and, those types of things. So for CBD, we're going to test a lot harder for heavy metals over here in the East, whereas in the West right now, a lot of stuff that you're seeing is based on, the pesticides of where things are developed at and what types of extras are put into things. So I think that there needs to be some form of a blanket version of testing. And I mean, I almost think that whatever we figure out in the cannabis industry is going to have to be pushed into the tobacco industry, because this whole oil stuff, vapes, CBDs, all this stuff that is really not being regulated, not really being looked at, it's opening up a world of underground markets that are, very dangerous, to say the least. So I think that, having Mitch McConnell finally kind of come around and say that he's on board with this type of stuff is huge, because, I mean, it was just, a couple of weeks ago, I was reporting on my radio show that he was saying that he's the Grim Reaper, and that anything that comes up to do with hemp, cannabis, and marijuana, he's going to figure out a way to make sure that it doesn't pass through the federal movements, because obviously at that point he was looking at it as a democratic thing and not looking at it as something for the wider group. So
yeah, and just so we know, and as well, just because I do follow a lot of the political landscape, is that both parties have adopted medical cannabis legislation into their party platforms, which is a huge step. So both of them have said, yes, this is something that we need to get on board with. The Libertarian Party has always been there from day one. And with a national consensus, I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe a national consensus of Americans, I think it's past 65% that support some form of legalization. You really can't stop that momentum. I think it's just a matter of time now that we look at. And I think getting our legislature to understand that the sooner they move to legalize, establish these standards, that will will help because of the obstacles that are there. It's always going to allow the black market to exist, to thrive, and be successful. And some of those, like what you guys alluded to earlier, in terms of the navigating through the laws and the investments, and some states require a pretty hefty bond in order to even apply. It's not as easy to do to cop up a $250,000, $500,000 bond in order to apply for a license. There are some states that are doing some type of social equity programs, and which I'm very excited about. I know Michigan has a program to allow people who may not be of high income, of more of a social type program, to get them involved in the industry. And I applaud those efforts, because I think it should be a level playing field, for all players in this exciting industry.
I agree 100% with that.
Yeah. And go ahead and plug your radio. What's your radio station or your podcast that you do? Go ahead and plug that while we're here.
We do. I do a radio show here in Worcester, Mass. It's called Cannabis 101. It's on 97.9 FM. And we also stream it live on Facebook on Unity Radio MA. So nice. That goes on weekly on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. And then right now, my team, we're in the works of doing a podcast. It's going to be a product testing podcast, where we can kind of start finding out what's going on in our area and in the industry. So that'll be something that we'll be starting in October, and we're going to look to start our own YouTube channel for that. So
very cool.
Trying to keep myself very busy in here.
Go ahead, Kim.
Yeah, I said that's so exciting.
Yeah, it is.
Real quick, let's jump real quick through another couple of interesting news as it relates to our industry, things that occurred this week. We also have now that the USDA is really close to establishing their hemp rules for every state. So when the hemp farm bill passed, it gave the states an opportunity to draft their own hemp legislation and then submit it to the feds for approval. And then for those states that didn't pass any type of bill that were waiting for the states to act, it looks like the feds are getting a little bit closer to establishing those hemp rules, which will just put hemp in overdrive for different farms, different grows. And certain states have allowed, I know in the state that I'm in, they wrote their own rules, submitted to the feds, but the sooner that they get this accomplished, I think it'll be better for the industry as a whole.
Absolutely. It's a very exciting time, knowing that all of this is actually happening, not just coming to fruition.
Yeah, so we'll track this and follow up with our listeners if there's any updates in regarding that. And the last one that I close with, and I think this is even more significant, and especially in terms of what you guys are getting ready for your the Metamorphosis Retreat, and that's the fact that we're getting ready to actually see for the first time ever more than 1/3 of senators who have now signed on for marijuana banking, which is huge, because that's one of the first questions that gets asked from the investor standpoint is, how are you banked? And we all know, we shouldn't have to play all these silly little games that we do sometimes with the banking world. And this would be huge. I really think this would really open the floodgates for traditional money to be willing to jump into the cannabis industry, knowing that their money is going to, the banks are going to be allowing this money to flow through. It's going to be a lot more transparent, FDIC insured. So this is a big win, especially from a Senate standpoint, seeing 1/3 of the Senate now signed on for this.
That would also be big for like the smaller groups like myself. I mean, if we had the opportunity to go to a bank and actually get a loan at some point in this process, that could have, helped a long way in this whole thing. But because that's not an option, that's just one more thing that becomes a monster that you got to overcome. In Massachusetts, obviously, we're in the same situation. Obviously, if you're FDIC, you can't work with the cannabis industry. So there are only, I believe 2 banks in our state that we have access to. And I mean, you talk about getting ready to create a monopoly for somebody. I mean, that's what we're supposed to do. So,
we keep saying in this industry, there's no need to compete. There is plenty to go around.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. Let's wrap it up. Let's go around the horn real quick with any closing comments. We'll start with you, Kim, first. Go for it. Any closing comments for our listeners today?
Sure. Please do go to the metamorphosisretreat.com and request your invitation. You will get vetted for obvious reasons. And let me give you my social media at Harvest and spelled out A&D Plume for all the social media. The cannabis sessions that just came up on Facebook, another housekeeping issue, at the Canna Sessions. And then, of course, the pipelinestrategies.com.
Excellent. Very good. And then also for our guest, any words of wisdom or any closing thoughts?
Just, I think that it is a great opportunity for people to have just from my standpoint, any social equity or economic empowerment program that's going on across the country is something that is looking to level the playing surface for everyone. And I think it is a big thing. And I think it's great that people are having that opportunity. But I also think that the states need to look into how they can create the supports for people so that they're not kind of just giving them that opportunity and then leaving them to their own devices. So, but I'm excited about the opportunity and just working hard to make sure it comes to fruition. That's all.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for joining us. Very well said, and I appreciate your participation. And for our Rogue 420 fans, please, by all means, please like, share, subscribe. Visit our social media handles, whether it's Harvest and Plume or Rogue 420, and share this information with your friends, family. It's a very exciting time to be joining this industry, and we'll be back next week with another Harvest and Plume podcast and cannabis session. So, Kim and Ike, correct?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you both so much, and have a wonderful afternoon.
Take care.
Thank you.
Take care. Thank you.